Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's the co-host. He's the statistician to the stars. He's the man of 1,008 aliases. His name is Padawan J.
Let me talk to you.
And boy, we have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, comics, and more. You are tuned in to the entertainment edition of the ODPH. And we definitely like to keep those conversations rolling after the show. So, Pad, where does everybody go?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. Blog section, TeePublic store, where you'd never know what sale's going on. So you definitely want to make sure if you want to get some ODPH swag, that's the perfect time to do it. The Classifieds, which has friends of the show, such as 3FM Podcast, Dragon Master Games, Nerd Initiative. The Directory. Pad, how many prizes are we on?
346,128.
And who's your source?
Trust me, bro.
So wherever you're listening to the ODPH on, first and foremost, thank you for checking us out. It does mean the absolute world to us. Drop a review on your favorite podcatcher. It definitely helps the algorithm of the show. Last but never least, we have a fantastic music section where you hear such bands as Brian Wolf and the Howlers, Second Suitor, Tom Jolu, Floodlands, and Shadow of the Robots. All the music you hear on the ODPH, you can download at your own leisure, support those musicians, and definitely get more people listening to them and listen to the show. That's how it all works, folks. It's that simple. And for anything else that I might have forgotten, because, hey, I do that sometimes, it's at odphpodcast.com. And always remember on social media to use the hashtag ODPHpod. Kicking off this edition of the show, we have to recap arguably the biggest show on TV, arguably, and one that after last week's episode, there was many questions of how this would go on. But if you're unfamiliar with the video game, you might have that question. If you are familiar with the video game, you have a fairly rough sense of what's going to happen.
You got an idea.
Pad, what show are we talking about?
Season 2, Episode 3 of The Last of Us.
Yes, the show starring Bella Ramsey as Ellie, the possible miracle survivor in a very unique pandemic fungal infection world that has now divided everybody and created very nasty creatures that are going around and more or less terrorizing like you would see in a zombie film. Now, formerly, Pedro Pascal's Joel was part of this show, but if you've been listening to the show past couple weeks, you know what happened to him. So this is the new era of Ellie and her search for answers involving what has just happened and transpired. So, like Pat alluded to, we are going to be talking about episode 3 of season 2 entitled The Path. If you are new to the show, what we like to do is give a spoiler-free statement on what we're talking about. So that way we don't ruin anything for you. However, we do give you a countdown. At that point, you're like the Clash. Do you stay or do you go? If you stay, you're going to hear spoiler talk. You're going to hear deep dives. You're going to hear theories. You're going to hear everything uncensored, and it's like that, and that's the way it is. If you have to say, you know what, I can't listen right now because I haven't watched the episode yet. I don't want to have this ruined. Perfectly fine. That's why we say download the episode. Pad timestamps it in the liner notes where we go into spoiler talk, and boom, you can just watch and jump back in and see where we match up on theories. That is how simple it works, folks. That is how much we are making sure we don't ruin this for anything. So, that all said, Pad, let us talk about HBO's original series on Max, The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3, entitled The Path.
I thought the episode was good. You know, not necessarily as good as the last one was, but I'm not quite sure how you would follow up that one with like another smash hit home run, you know, after the gut punch that was. But it was still a good episode.
Solid episode. I agree with you. You were not going to top the impact of the previous episode.
No.
You just weren't. But I thought for where they're trending now, they're on the right path. No pun intended. And I thought they nailed the key points they needed to. And especially now with only 4 episodes left, there's a lot of ground they have to cover and get set up. So when we're getting on this road to wherever Ellie is going now, it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I thought it was very solid. It felt more like the true epilogue episode that it needed to be.
Yeah.
So that being said, let us get into that spoiler talk. So in 3, 2, 1, let's talk about the path.
Yeah, like I said, episode was good. I wouldn't necessarily say it's the greatest episode, but it wasn't bad. Last week's was just such an adrenaline rush of action and consequences and heartbreak and a whole bunch of mixed emotions that you almost needed, almost like in professional wrestling, where you've got that one match, that everyone's going crazy for and everyone's real hyped for and everyone's, going screaming and cheering for, that you almost need something afterwards. You're like, all right, we got to come back down. We got to calm down here. We got to pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. That's what this felt like okay, we had the last episode that was insane and what to the wall and fast paced, that you almost needed to take a step back and go, all right, let's reassess. And that's what this episode did. It was a good one. It was almost therapeutic, I guess, in a way. And I enjoyed it.
It did what it needed to do. And that is tie up the loose ends of Joel, who has been killed off on the show, mm-hmm. and put Ellie on her new path. Mm-hmm. And that is exactly what they did. They threw in a very solid amount of drama with this episode, which I was expecting. And to see now where she is going, it may seem like much at first because of how this show ends. Mm-hmm. However, it really isn't.
No.
But this is where we always say you need to check out the source material before diving into these shows.
Yeah.
If you're coming in cold, I know where this might look like, and that is The Walking Dead.
Kind of.
Because in certain groups, Alexandria,
yeah,
it's mobilized and dealing with the post-apocalyptic world.
Yep.
There was that kind of vibe here to a degree.
I mean, you can definitely see the inspiration from at least the comics.
Oh, sure.
Just because the video games came out, I want to say before we got to the Alexandria portions of the television show. Mm-hmm. The comics were out, so you can definitely see some inspiration. And I think especially with zombie franchises, it's hard to do one without drawing at least a little bit of inspiration from one of them. I'm not saying they're sitting there and you're borrowing George Romero stuff from here and Walking Dead stuff from this and Black Summer stuff with this. Like, you're definitely inspired by some of them.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of inspiration, and I think it carried through. But just for the pop culture audience that we've been talking with on social media, the ones that play the video game have really been enjoying this. The ones that dealt with the pop culture effect, it's more in the same vein, but to a very, very lesser degree.
Yeah.
About when Negan killed Glenn and that shock value.
Yeah.
That's what happened last episode. So now diving into where we go now, I thought they played it kind of safe.
A little bit.
Which was what they needed to do. Like I say, it was fitting.
Yeah.
Because they do a jump from where the episode starts, which is Ellie wakes up in the hospital, healing from the attack that she suffered from Abby's group.
But at least 2-3 broken ribs.
Yeah, so they open there, and then they do a time jump. So they go 3 months later, and obviously Jackson is starting to recover from everything. But still, it's not fully healed. So Jackson, Wyoming, their home base for quite some time, is still not 100%, which I like the fact that it wasn't just over and done with.
Yeah, and they're at a point where they're trying to reassess, okay, what do we need to do? We need to rebuild, we need to fix things, but we don't have nearly enough supplies to do it.
Right. So they're trying to piece everything together, but the only thing that is haunting Ellie is revenge. That she wants to kill Abby and that whole group. So it does come out during conversation with Dina that, there might be a little more information going on with this than meets the eye. And how Isabella Merced, who's playing Dina, really established this, I thought was very smart, because the entire time Ellie is really just trying to rally anybody to come to her side about, we need to go settle this.
Yeah.
So when Dina finally fesses up that she knows a little bit more about this, I thought how she played it was very, very smooth.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like rushed.
No, and I think it made sense for the scene because they showed in the little recap at the start of the episode when Dina and Joel first got captured, that before they put Dina unconscious with whatever sedative it was, that she saw the patch on one of their jackets, vests, whatever it was. She saw the patch that said Washington Liberation Front, and it had the picture of the wolf on it. And it lingered there for not long, which is, maybe a couple seconds. So they kind of set it up to like, hey, she saw it, she's aware of it, and she comes to Ellie looking to talk because as far as we know, this is the first time that she's waking up or whatever it is. And she's like, hey, I know you're going to want to talk about this, but I'm at least a little hesitant because of how I'm sure you're going to react.
Mm-hmm. It definitely feels that. And knowing that they're still trying to sort out their emotions for each other too, it adds a whole new dynamic into the scene.
Yeah.
So when Ellie gets this information, she is immediately, we're going to hunt these people down.
Mm-hmm.
And Dina is kind of saying, this really is not happening that way.
Yeah.
You're better, and it comes to the conclusion after her talking to some of the other townsfolk that she's friends with, especially Jesse, played by young Mazzio, or Mazzino. That is when you see Ellie really come to a realization that she might not be able to pull this off.
Right.
But they do call a town hall meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And the powers that be of the town are at least hearing this.
Yep. They're at least, because at first they're like, no, we can't do this. We're like, well, now we can't do this. And then the same gentleman, I forget his name, that gave Ellie crap at the New Year's Eve. Seth, the same guy that gave Ellie crap at the New Year's Eve dance, dinner, whatever that thing was, stands up and goes, listen, we need to protect our people. I'm paraphrasing, but this is effectively what he said. Hey, listen, we need to stand up for our people. If your house gets broken into and you get robbed, you don't stand there and say, well, is what it is, and you just leave the door off the hinges. Like, no, you do something about it. You look for the people that did it. You get a door and you replace the door that got broken off the hinges. Like, you don't just take this laying down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the one point that they needed to do, because if they did not, it kind of sets up the paranoia that's going on, because this is the first time I think they realize that their home sweet home is not so safe. And that something could happen catastrophic as this. And depending on how they were feeling about Joel, this is also a point that is lingering around. So Ellie does get that support from Seth.
Yeah.
And she does read her letter, trying to sway everybody about this.
Yeah.
But when it comes out for a vote, it is very heavily voted down.
Oh, 2-8, 3-8, something like that.
Yeah.
There was very few people who, signed on, quote unquote, to do this.
Oh, exactly. I mean, and you have to understand, not everybody feels the same way that Ellie does, and
right.
There's that fear of the unknown right now.
Well, and especially you just think back to what happened in the prior episode and just how badly they got attacked.
Oh yeah,
like we don't know numbers of like how many were there, how many were lost, how many were injured, and how many aren't going to be able to fight again just because of various circumstances.
Yeah, I mean it's a whole different ball of wax.
So they've got to assess. It's not just hey, okay, it sucks we lost Joel. He was a very important cog and a very important piece in this machine that is our little slice of civilization, but there's more than one cog in this proverbial engine.
So ultimately this becomes the pushing point for Ellie to leave, because Ellie's just going to do this herself.
Yep.
And she does get some surprise help. I mean, Dina joins along with her, which that is not the big surprise.
Which, side note, did not realize this until somebody pointed this out to me. The actress playing Dina, Isabella Merst, one of the more interesting acting careers thus far, I must say, was in Transformers The Last Night, was in Sicario, Day of the Soldado, was in Alien Romulus most recently, along with The Last of Us. Oh, by the way, she was Dora the Explorer in the live-action Dora movie. Which is wild. Didn't pick that out. There was also a fun nod to Dora the Explorer in this episode. When she confronts Ellie, who's getting ready to leave, she asks if she has boots and a map. Which are two I know are from when my brother and sister were watching, two of the characters on Dora the Explorer. So a fun little nod to Dora the Explorer there.
Oh yeah, she's definitely making rounds in Hollywood right now too. She's slated to be in the Superman film as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she's going to be playing Hawkgirl. Yeah, so she's going to be
busy.
She's going to be making some rounds. But like I say, for her character for the show, she's definitely making the points to keep moving along. So I think that for anybody that's worried about the star power per se, where Pedro Pascal is leaving,
we're still good.
Merced's there, so they'll be okay because her career is now skyrocketing and taking off.
Yeah, no kidding.
But they also get some help here too, because Seth, who was the bartender who voiced the certain explicitives.
Yeah, this is a family setting.
Yeah. He is now supporting Ellie's decision to go do it because basically it helps the city.
A little bit of guilt on his part? Making up for previous amends?
Maybe. I took it more so as I don't think he feels I think there is a certain amount of guilt, but I think that he understands what her message was. Mm-hmm. And he is somebody that understands what she's doing and why she's doing it.
Yeah.
So he's getting behind it.
Yeah.
But I do think, there is a little bit of guilt, but I think it's just more so they're on the same page about what they feel for Jackson, and they have to go, and somebody has to do it. So I think that's where he's supporting it. So then they wind up leaving.
Yeah.
The next morning, Ellie goes to Joel's grave and leaves coffee beans, which, like I say, it's a touching scene.
Yeah, it is.
Especially knowing their characters in the video game and what it transpires. So it's kind of the final send-off there. And then as Dina and Ellie are going to Seattle, they come across a massacre, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no kidding. Good Lord.
Because they teased this earlier in the episode that the Seraphites,
yes,
who are a very weird cult.
Everyone in the show's a cult.
Yeah, to put it mildly.
Tell me otherwise.
They're traveling, and then they come across the Liberation Front. And when Dina and Ellie come across them, it's a slaughter.
Yeah, they're all. It's a battle that took place, and they're all dead.
Yeah, and it's not one for the faint of heart either, because a young child is killed.
Yep.
Which Dina vomits seeing.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. It's a very gruesome scene.
Yeah.
So they know what they're walking into, and they're literally walking into a trap. But they're trying to be very careful. So then ultimately they wind up getting to Seattle. So after some character moments, they get there. It's a great screenshot of the city as it's broken down during the state. And they're now noticing, this seems very, very light of resistance. Like this should be an easy shot to go get Abby.
Yeah.
So they're starting to make their way through. But then we flash to the ending of the episode, which I think this is where I was making the Walking Dead comparison, and this will really resonate at home. You see somebody's in a skyscraper, and they're doing lookout, and they're on the ground, calling out to soldiers there. And then, Pad, what do we see who they're calling to?
They are calling to a convoy with dozens of soldiers going through the streets.
Yeah.
And there's armored vehicles.
So there's an entire army ready to go.
Well, because the thing I think a lot of people forget is when this apocalypse first started, it was roughly 2003, 2004, somewhere in there. I think it was 2003 because the running joke is they never got to see Return of the King, which is honestly a travesty. But so a lot of these places have been disconnected for literal decades. So it's just been kind of like, hey, yeah, you might live in Seattle, and at one point you had family living in Austin, Texas, and sure, at that point you could have picked up a phone and called collect and called long distance and asked them how they're doing, but you can't do that now. So now it's just kind of like they got their stuff, we got our stuff. We're just gonna do what we can do, and yeah, there are armies built up in some of the major cities. Yeah,
it's really crazy to see, but this is something that it does make sense, and it falls into a very typical trope. Or idea, I should say, rather, instead, that you see in zombie films.
Sure.
There's mobilization of army, and
sure.
then can they stop the threat coming?
Sure.
And ultimately, it's going to end badly for Seattle.
Probably.
It always does. But as far as Ellie's story goes, this is where it stops now. And going by the previews for next week, it's just going to be absolute insanity.
Yeah, which, I mean, halfway point through the season. Makes sense.
Right, but I mean, I think overall it did what it needed to do. It got her started on her new path.
Yeah, it was kind of like the end. Like it almost felt like the first two episodes were a bookend for the first story.
Yeah,
and that was the first story of everything that took place in the first episode. Them finding out they got to go to Jackson, getting to Jackson, and then the ramifications of what happened on their way there. And now this is the start of quote-unquote book 2, I guess you could say, or the next story.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of miles to go, but an overall solid episode nevertheless. Was it game-changing? No, but it did the job it needed to do. You had to come off an extremely
emotional
episode.
Yeah.
And you needed to move the story forward, and that's exactly what it did. Mm-hmm. So that being said, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your take on HBO's The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 3, entitled The Path? Hit us up. Let us know. We're going to get a quick break. We're going to be right back.
Do you like comic books?
What about movies and TV shows?
Well, we may be the show for you.
We're Hops Geek News, a weekly podcast that discusses comics, movies, and TV shows while featuring a beer of the week.
Every week we chat about what we messed up on the week before, and then we dive into what we're reading and watching, as well as some news.
We then wrap it up with a geek-themed topic of the week.
You can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts by searching Hops Geek News.
Cheers.
The content you are listening to is part of the Nerd Initiative Podcast Network. For more info about the home of pop culture positivity, be sure to check out nerdinitiative.com.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and it's time to talk about a very unique viewing experience on Disney+.
It's certainly something.
I'm going to just say this right now. I am not a fan of this.
I am and I'm not.
This is not working for me. I'm sorry. I understand what they're trying to do, and I applaud them. Mm-hmm. But personally, I am not a fan of 3 at once, and you're trying to make that into a week or a year, I should say.
It works for me from the standpoint of it feels like a mini movie, and it does, and none of the episodes really feel like filler because, like I said last week, we get the start, we get the middle, we get the end, and we can move on. But at the same token, it's 3 hours of television released in a night, and then we have to watch it. Which if more spaced out, I'd be okay with, but then I know I'd be complaining some of these feel like filler. So it's a double-edged sword.
It's a catch for you, my friend, but me, I'm not. I mean, granted, I'm enjoying the episodes, but it is not one that I'm a fan of.
Sure. I agree with you on certain parts.
Yeah, so, and what show are we talking about?
That'd be Season 2, Episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Andor.
Yeah, so like we said last week, we're doing this a little differently than we normally would because, quite frankly, if we did the hour-long deep dive on each episode...
we'd be here for about an hour and a half.
Yes, at least on each episode, and that's never fun.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, we try giving you at least...
My wife would get very angry at us.
Yeah, I was going to say, we have a lot of people that be very angry at us. Mm-hmm. So that being said, though, we are going to recap it like we do on Break It Down. Same format, but just a little differently because we're going to break down all 3 episodes at once. So that all said, Pad, give me your spoiler-free statements on Ever Been to Gorman, I Have Friends Everywhere, and What a Festive Evening from Star Wars Andor Season 2.
Yeah, so I thought the episodes were good. You know, they weren't great, they weren't bad, they were good. Enjoyed them. I enjoyed particularly the parts of kind of getting to see. And this isn't a spoiler. We know how the show's going to end. We know where it's going to end up. I enjoyed some of the portions of getting to see kind of the behind-the-scenes rebellion side of things. It's not firmly there, but you're kind of starting to see little seeds and little, kernels planted there where obviously by the time we get to Rogue One, it's effectively running. It's kind of going on its own way. They've got intel. They've got this. They've got that. You're starting to see the little kernels of it, and I do enjoy that portion of it, but for the rest of it, it was okay.
I thought it was solid.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing about it is we know how this all ends.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter, are we taking the scenic route there, or can we take a shortcut?
Right.
I don't mind the scenic route. It's just the time frame about it. I understand what they're trying to do, and they're trying to make every year feel impactful. Mm-hmm. And is it working? Yeah, I mean, I get the backstory of it.
Sure.
Am I at the same stage was season 1? No. This has been much better. I will say that. And especially you're seeing a lot of the growth from the 2 main characters, Mon Mothma and Andor. So when you're having this thrown in here, it definitely does help. Mm-hmm. And especially seeing where, Diego Luna has taken the character, because to see where he started and to where he is now, it is a true sign of growth.
Yeah.
And then obviously when you have certain characters finally popping up and making an impact, especially one Luther. You know, anytime you get
Luther Rail.
Yeah, Stellan Skarsgård on screen, you know you're doing some real business. And to see how his relationship is now with Cassian, it really is throwing some really cool stuff there, especially when they're investigating what's going on in Gorman.
Yeah.
Because you know, you really get a sense of like how much Andor is now buying in to, you know, the resistance here.
Yeah.
So that all said, I know we're going to start deep diving into this stuff, aren't we? Because we haven't given the spoiler talk, have we?
No.
So let's get into it because I'm sensing it's happening. All 3 episodes really got it going on. But let's go into that spoiler talk. So in 3, 2, 1, let's talk some Andor.
Yeah, like I said, thought the episode was good. Not necessarily the greatest episode they've ever done, but by no means the worst I've ever seen. You know, I dug kind of seeing the behind the scenes espionage and spyness of it. You know, it was interesting to see some of the what's going on with the general populace side of things, because I forget the character's name, but you had the one guy we saw from season 1 conversing with his mother, and I think it was the second episode, or maybe it was the first. It was relatively early in my viewing, but talking with his mother and how he's on this planet, and she's talking about all of this stuff she's heard on the news, and he's like, "Well, that's Imperial propaganda." You know, and it's one of those things that just in Star Wars, even in the books and in the comics, we never really got to see. You know, the only ever instance I can think of that we kind of got to see it was a couple episodes in Clone Wars where you saw quote unquote billboards, but it was showing the news and what was going on and they were talking. So like you never really get to see that side. So to get to see that side of things and just what's going on, I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, it's all about getting that build up.
Yeah.
And especially, too, I like how they started bringing back a lot of old friends for this. And especially when you have the deal going down on the Gorman. You know, like I say, that's kind of where I really enjoyed I think I enjoyed the first episode more than I did the other 2.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Maybe it was just because it had like a more vibe of what was going on.
Sure.
Because what Diego Luna was doing, and especially this is the first time we really see him and Luther kind of go into business. And especially like what's been going on and assessing what's happened with the Empire now, building an armory. You know, it's kind of a little crazy to see how this all shapes up.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, you never lose the sense of like somebody's pulling a double deed, like the entire time.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I thought they really excelled at with this, because if you have that sense of like everything's going okay, everything's moving fine, it loses that drama flair. And I think that's where it really kind of takes shape and it really throws everything off.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind that at all. Obviously, anytime we get to see the legendary Forrest Whitaker on screen as Saw Gerrera, it's always a big win. So I was super happy to see him here.
Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, Pat, let's talk about his role on this this journey. I mean, what was your big takeaways?
I was a little surprised to see him just because when we get to Rogue One, which is going to be in the timeline of this universe in about 3 years, give or take a couple months, you know, he's there, he's established, he's a thorn in the side, but it to me, it sounds like you hadn't really seen or heard from him much just because he's such a prominent quote unquote figure with, you know, the rebellion side of things. I figured he'd be laying low a little bit and kind of working things from the shadows and sending his, you know, his accomplices, I guess you could say, to do things. So I was surprised to see him a little bit, but I was happy to see it.
I was very happy. I mean, especially when they tried doing the whole traitor storyline. I thought he really nailed it. I mean, it just, there's certain actors that can pull off that moment, and especially when you're trying to see about who is the traitor for their mission, and you know, when he starts flipping back and forth with involving Willman to do his work. I mean, I thought it was just a cool moment to see it play out, and especially too, it really did feel like everything was flowing at this point. Like it had that great lead in. And then episode 5, I Have Friends Everywhere, was okay. Yeah. Like I say, it didn't really take home until the end. And that's where I said when Saw kills the traitor, like that's where the point hit. Yeah. So when you can kind of pull some stuff off like this, it works. I thought the Mon Mothma portion of this, though, kind of building up for something behind the scenes.
It definitely is, just because, and again, this is a thing that we haven't really seen a whole lot of in the books or in the comics. Even in the old canon stuff, we really didn't see much. Just it's kind of, hey, the Republic falls and the Empire's there, and the next time we really see or find out anything about the Republic is that scene in A New Hope where Tarkin walks in and he says, "Oh, the Emperor just dissolved the Senate." And you're like, that's not a thing anymore. So we really don't know that much. So obviously we have to build up to that. We have to get to that. And that whole thing, it's not necessarily the most explosive scenes, but if you sit there and you just kind of watch the political machinations behind the scenes, it's wild to see, especially if you go back and you watch some of the scenes from the prequel films with where they went from that to, especially in the second one, which I know some people might cringe at, but just go look up some of those scenes online. They couldn't agree on what color the sky is, let alone getting anything past. And then you see what happens in some of these episodes. It's wild to see.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And then when we start getting into the meat and potatoes of the episode with What a Festive Feeling, like we do get kind of a little payoff too.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the rebellion, I should say, suffers another loss.
Yeah.
I mean, let's talk about that, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, you got this whole plot going on of there's the heist they're trying to pull off, and you have Vel and Cinta sent to help out the rebels on Gorman pull it off, which, you know, hey, you had the romance going on between Vel and Cinta, on again, off again, whatnot. You know, they do rekindle it, which was nice to see. You know, and the heist is successful, but as is often the case with heists, it doesn't exactly go off as planned. And they end up losing Cinta because she's accidentally killed by one of the fighters, much to Vel's sadness.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's definitely going to throw a curveball into everything, too. And especially, too, I mean, how much is casting going to be feeling blame for this?
Right.
Because it's him complaining about the attempt on the Gorman rebels, that him and Luthen get into, and Luthen makes the call to send Val and Cinta.
Well, and I think this is just going to kind of lead us to where we see him in Rogue One, where you think of the first time he shows up in Rogue One on Yavin 4 when he's getting brought in for the mission there. He's just cold and does not give a you-know-what. And I think this is kind of what's going to, he's very much, got the fire, and he wants to fight the Empire, and he wants to, restore the good to the galaxy. But you think about it, when we get to Rogue One, he's kind of beaten down, and he's kind of like, all right, let's just do this. Like, let's just get this over with.
Yeah. And, I mean, ultimately, they get a lot of stuff moving in between, too. Like I say, the one thing is, if we're kind of being a little more brief about episodes 5 and 6, they kind of just moved really quickly. Like, like I say, 4 was the one that really stuck out because it had the most... Yeah. I don't want to say the more meat of the course here. Yeah. Because everything else just kind of moves super fast. Yeah. And especially
it was flipping between like 3 different stories.
Yeah, that's the one thing too that I'm okay with, but I'm not in love with this series. Is they're jumping in
because they're jumping between the 3 storylines. They're trying to get a year's worth of information in 3 episodes and move on to the next year.
Yeah, and like especially like with Mothma's case. Yeah, like that really wasn't touched upon a lot, in my opinion, in episode 5, and then they swing back through in episode 6. And it's like that's a pretty big storyline. Yeah. So why are we getting away from it? Yeah. And then how they kind of spin everything into the close, which I will say the close. Whew. The close definitely was one that I was sitting there going, okay. Yeah. Now we have seen either the true villain story break out with Andor, or like, what are we doing here?
Well, I think they're reaching a point where the gloves are starting to come off. I think they've kind of been playing things by the book and been very, I don't want to say diplomatic, but very, by the rules of things, where they're the rules of engagement and what have you. And let's face it, they're taking losses. They're getting punched in the mouth, so to speak. And I think they're finally reaching a point where they're tired of losing. They're tired of playing back on their heels and like, what, we're going to take the fight to them.
Yeah, which I mean I get, and it makes sense because by the time we see Andor in Rogue One, he's a little more grizzled, I guess is the nice word to put for it. But it's also one that you now see him really crossing lines. Yeah. And especially, too, with how they end things with him. And I mean, granted, him and Bix have kind of been going back and forth a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, the whole thing about bringing her back into the mix. I mean, Adria Adrona, who has been playing her, has been doing great.
She's a little more cold-hearted than he is at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they do kind of like that walk-off moment, too, with the explosions going on, which, I mean, it's Hollywood. I'm not mad about.
Yeah.
Really, I promise you I'm not mad about it.
Yeah.
But then it's like when you start getting into the final there, and then whose office do they break into?
This is Gorst. He developed Dr. Gorst. He developed a torture method that got used on Bix at one point. And she's none too thrilled to see him again.
No. So, like, this kind of brings everything full circle, I guess, for both of them to a degree. Because when they're going and helping with the rebellion, and especially knowing that Gorst had something to do with things, allegedly, we'll just do it the old podcast way.
Yeah.
When they break in and they use his own device on him to kill him.
That's cold-hearted, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just really changed the temp in the room.
Yeah.
Like, more than anything.
Yeah.
And I think when we kind of have to sit there and see about, like, this is definitely getting away from the traditional-esque Star Wars vibe, per se, and you're seeing the Resistance, really crossing lines. And I think when you're seeing this play out, I mean, Saw can definitely strike that fear into some people, but now I think Andor is calmly turning into that. That's adding up and definitely making a lot of noise.
Oh, yeah.
But I think for overall, I mean, everything really kind of just went, I don't want to say downhill after that first episode.
Yeah.
But it just moved really fast.
Kind of plateaued.
Yeah, it kind of plateaued. It's just like they did so much of like a big hype, and it's not saying it was a letdown by any means.
Right. I mean, this is just what they're running into when you want to cram 4 or 5 years worth of stuff into 12 episodes.
Yeah. It's just one of those things that something's going to get lost in translation, and I think there was a couple key points that did happen.
And if I'm being honest, it's an ambitious plan, but it ain't working.
Right. That's the whole point. It's just, I understand the idea. I'm not mad about it, but it's just, it's not really hitting in the key points.
Yeah, for me too.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. So it's still worth watching, though. Not saying that, but just make sure you got enough time to do it and absorb it, because there's a lot of stuff happening.
I'll be honest, this series and this whole season, wait till it's done.
Yeah.
Wait till it's done. Binge the whole thing, because it'll just be easier on you.
Yeah. But nevertheless, we're still watching. We have a lot to talk about with you. So, I mean, overall, Pat, final thoughts on the 3?
Good couple episodes. Not necessarily a smash hit home run. Honestly, kind of forgettable in certain points.
Yeah.
But we'll see where it goes. The most interesting part of the whole thing to me is the Mon Mothma scenes, just because it's a little bit of a slow burn, but you can kind of see where they're going.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I think they should have leaned in more. I mean, the Andor thing I get, but it's just like the slow evolution of his dark side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, they're hitting the points, and seeing Saw back was great.
Yeah.
But I wish we had more Mon Mothma in this run.
Yeah.
And I feel that we need to have that storyline get a payoff with the next week's 3.
Maybe.
But overall, it's been worth watching. It's been a lot better than season 1. I'll say that right now.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about Star Wars Andor episodes 4 through 6? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or why not? Let's talk about it, shall we? But first, we're going to get a quick break. We'll be right back.
You ever wondered what comics Mark from Vale is into? What Zach from Left Behind's favorite MCU movies are? Well, Metalcore Nerds is the show for you. My name is Sean Mott, and here at Metalcore Nerds, we cover the latest things in pop culture, whether it be Star Wars, Marvel, DC, AEW, and everything else in between. You can listen to the show every Monday on Adobe Howl at 7 p.m. Eastern, or find it anywhere you find podcasts after it debuts on the radio station.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and finally the MCU is back. I mean, obviously, Captain America, Brave New World kicked things off, but this film that we're going to be having debuting in theaters this week has been the one that I think has the most question marks around it. And obviously, knowing the name and knowing the characters involved, this has the potential to be a big hit or not so much. Pad, what are we talking?
We were talking about Thunderbolts, which is releasing this weekend.
Yes. So if you are not familiar with the group, I mean, they debuted in the comics way back when in the 90s under Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley. I will say this is probably the last great comic reveal that was not spoiled by the internet. During the Heroes Reborn, the Avengers were gone, and this mysterious group of heroes emerged, striking justice like lightning. And then, if I'm actually going to save it because I want everybody to go out and go read this issue if you haven't already done it. But it's one of the best comics we've seen for superheroes in quite some time. The team has gone over many lineup changes throughout the years.
Yeah.
And the one that we're seeing now in the MCU is very street level based.
Yep.
It is one that we're very familiar with certain characters, such as Sebastian Stan reprising his role as Bucky Barnes. Florence Pugh is playing Yelena Boleva, the White Widow from the Black Widow movie. And obviously, David Harbour is reprising his role as Alexei, a.k.a. the Red Guardian. Wyatt Russell is back as John Walker, a.k.a. the U.S. Agent.
A.k.a. Ken's favorite character.
I have two of my three Trinity characters here for this film because we are seeing the debut of the Sentry, a.k.a. Robert Reynolds, who's played by Louis Pullman. And how this all ties into Julia Louis-Dreyfus's Valentina's character has been a bit of a question mark. The only thing that we know going into this film, because I think what we're going to do for this segment especially, we're breaking down just our theories about this.
Sure.
And why you should go see it or why you should not. Because we have seen the trailer. There's been a lot of stuff that's been very questionable about it. But and questionable meaning there's just not a lot of clear-cut answers of what's going on. The only thing we know going into this really is Bucky Barnes is running for Congress. Because we saw this in Captain America Brave New World. And Valentina has been putting together a team of her own behind the scenes. We do know that she is now residing in Avengers Tower. And the threat of everybody is a character known as the Void.
Yep.
So since we are going to be just speculating and talking spoilers, do we need to put a countdown on?
Maybe.
3, 2, 1. So the Void is actually the Sentry's evil side. And to see how they're going to portray this in the film, I think is going to be one of the biggest challenges they've had. But they do have a lot of street-level heroes to go up against this Superman-esque threat. And I think that's going to add the dynamic to it because essentially these characters are not heroes. I don't want to use the term anti-hero.
Right.
But I think what they're going to be doing is offering a redemption arc, which I could see this working in a lot of favors, and they do tie this into Thunderbolts comics quite often.
Yeah.
So it does make some sense. This is not going to be like Suicide Squad, though.
No.
To put it mildly.
No.
I mean, granted, they do have some very bad people on this team, but
Yeah.
it's not essentially going to go that way.
Yeah.
But Pat, going off that, what is your biggest expectations for this film?
Well, this movie's going to have to do a lot of lifting and setting up for what's been a tumultuous and bumpy phases, I guess you could say, ever since Endgame came and went, and you had obviously the circumstances that took place, things started and then they had to kind of stop and pivot. And well, now here we are with Thunderbolts releasing now. After this, you've got Fantastic Four First Steps releasing in July. In between that, you've got the Ironheart television series coming out. Then you've got Eyes of Wakanda, the television series, coming out in August. You've got Marvel Zombies, which doesn't even really tie into the MCU. It's just, an animated project coming out in October. You've got the Wonder Man series coming at some point in December, allegedly. And then you've got Avengers Doomsday in May. So if you're talking like, the casual fans who don't necessarily watch everything, they just kind of go to the theaters and watch the films. You've got this, you've got Fantastic Four, and then you've got your next tentpole Avengers movie. And we really don't have a lot set up for what's kind of going to be going on with that. It's not exactly like Infinity War, where we had seen Thanos for a couple of movies. We'd seen the appearances of some Infinity Stones, and we knew where they were. It was just a matter of he had to go get them and this and that. It's kind of like they're playing behind the eight ball a little bit. So I would say for fans who are kind of on the fence to go get this, listen, we're almost a year to the day, when this episode comes out, or maybe when you're listening to this, it's a year to the day from the next Avengers movie. So it's really this, Fantastic Four, and then we're there.
Yeah, they're really going to have to cover a lot of ground.
Yeah.
I mean, Disney Plus, they have their lineup ready to go.
Sure.
How that's going to impact Avengers Doomsday, I really don't know.
We'll see.
I think they're going to be nice complementary pieces.
Yeah.
But I don't think that you're going to have the Disney Plus shows impacted. I don't think Daredevil Born Again is going to have anything to do with it.
Well, we know Fisk ain't.
Well, that's the whole point. They're really leaning into borrowing a couple storylines because, like you touched upon, they pivoted stories, reasons.
The well-documented reasons.
Yep. So we understand that, and I think this might be a good bridge to see where they're going per se.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is the main mission of this one is to reestablish the MCU is not all the Avengers.
Right.
And I think bringing back a lot of the fan favorites and putting them in a very dysfunctional team is a cool thing. There's one character, though, that they have not shown a lot of, but I know it kind of made the rounds on a trailer, too, and that's Geraldine Viswanathan, who's playing a character known as Mel.
Okay.
Now, if I am doing my comic research correctly, and if I saw when she appeared on screen, she is wearing a bird necklace.
Maybe.
If this is the case, this is Songbird, who is arguably the most legendary Thunderbolt from that original run.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really, really hoping this is her. Because I think that if you're going to do Thunderbolts, she's in the early phases of that team, she is one of the most important characters of that run. Granted, I would love to see the real Citizen V show up, but I don't think that's going to happen. But if you add Songbird into this, that is a very key moment, and to see how she's going to help. She won't be a game changer that'll stop the Sentry. I'll say that right now. But it's a very nice nod to any of the old school Thunderbird or Thunderbolts fans. Like I say, there's a lot of history they can do, and especially I see Kurt Busiek has actually contributed as a writer on the credits on IMDb for this. So, and if he's involved, I feel very good about things because his run, I think, is the benchmark you said on everything for Thunderbolts.
Right.
But I think overall here, you're going to just want to really establish to the pop culture audience that not everything needs to be MCU, and you need to remind about the characters they have. And I think for anybody that is still, worried about the Kang dynasty and now transitioning to Doom, don't worry about it. It'll play itself out.
Yeah.
Avengers Doomsday will be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be messy. It's going to be complicated.
But it's going to be a two-part story.
It's going to be a two-part story. And the aftermath will be Secret Wars. And trust me, go read the Jonathan Hickman story right now.
Ooh, baby.
Just going to put it out there right now. Save yourself some time. Get a jump start on things.
Yeah.
But for where Thunderbolts is, they're going to be establishing the Sentry. I do feel, though, the Sentry is going to be playing a larger role in things.
Hopefully.
You say that, and I don't.
Well, no, I just say for especially this run, for phases, what are we, 5 and 6 now? How many characters have they introduced that it's like, oh, that'll be fun to see them do some things, and they're sitting on a shelf waiting to get used. Like, Adam Warlock got introduced in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Now, granted, we haven't seen or heard of anything involving the Guardians since Guardians 3, but doesn't appear to be on the horizon anytime soon. There's Kit Harington's character, who I'm blanking on at the moment.
Black Knight.
Again, it's been how long since we've heard mention of him or anything, and doesn't appear to be on the horizon at any point. Like, I hope they do something with Sentry because, hey, introduce some characters and he gives you a deeper roster and more stuff you can do with, But unfortunately, with the way they've been going for phases 5 and 6, we introduce these cool characters and then we don't really do anything with them.
Well, I think, though, in comparison, a lot was tied into the lack thereof success of the Eternals for Black Knight. Plus, allegedly, he was connected to the Blade Project.
Well, yeah.
And then that thing is done.
Well,
I mean, let's be honest.
Who knows at this point?
I'm just gonna say it. My official opinion is it's done.
I know the one person who was going to be the composer for that film said it's done, but
yeah, I mean,
we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, I'm not putting any stock in ever seeing that movie again.
I think the success of Sinners at the box office is going to give Marvel some motivation to try and get that film done.
Well, I would say Sinners has been an amazing film. I've not seen it yet, but
neither have I. But I've seen the box office numbers.
Yes, so. Marvel's taking notes of a lot of things too.
Yeah.
I just think that what they do sometimes, and we do hear this quite often, they load up their deck way too much.
Sure.
And they try doing too much without planting a foundation.
Sure.
I mean, you think about it. How many times do we hear about Nova was supposed to be coming to the
Oh
screen?
God, more often than I want to count.
Right. And then how long did it take for them to finally come out with She-Hulk and Moon Knight?
Yeah.
You know, and those shows.
Yeah, well, the She-Hulk, there was the whole rights thing with Universal, and they had to figure that out.
Right.
Moon Knight was probably just waiting for the right time.
Right. But and then was Miss Marvel, because that was all the three there at once. And then we've now been waiting to see, okay, what's going to happen with Young Avengers. I think with what they're doing is they're kind of streaming back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think with this group, you can throw this team together and it'll make sense. It just depends on what direction they want to go with, and especially in dealing with the Sentry.
Mm-hmm.
And then how you want to play that into effect. But I do think the Sentry, even as much as I don't like the character, has been a big part of recent Marvel events.
Yeah.
Going into the King in Black storyline.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously, I unfortunately don't think we're going to see that anytime soon.
Probably not.
I mean, I never say never, but I'm going to say if that's probably a safe lock that we won't see that.
Yeah.
But we will have enough to go off of with the characters here. And it reminds, like I say, it all goes back to the characters and establishing, why they matter. And like that's where Marvel's strength has been. They really have found a way to connect these characters to a pop culture audience. This is why Guardians of the Galaxy had 3 films.
Yeah.
This is why I live in a world that had an Ant-Man franchise.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to.
Right.
But they did.
Well, and I think ultimately some of this is going to tie back into what we saw with the last Captain America movie.
Oh, completely.
Where we haven't seen or heard anything to do with an Avengers-level team since Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
The world has gone on. We had Tiamat, or whatever his name is, emerge out of the Indian Ocean, and almost destroy the entire planet.
Yeah.
You've had all this other stuff go on Earth, and let alone the fact, spoilers, but hey, it's, had its run in theaters by now, so if you haven't seen it, sorry. You had the president of the United States turn into a Hulk on national television, destroy a good portion of Washington, D.C. I won't say all of it, but it was a good portion of it. I think they're at a point, and certain parties are at a point where they're like, hey, we need to do something about this because clearly the Avengers aren't coming around anytime soon. Yeah. So it's going to tie into that, and it's going to kind of build up to what I presume is going to happen in Doomsday.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure there's going to be some groundwork laid here. I think the bonus scene is going to be the one that really is going to have everybody talking. So I have not seen it. I don't want to know about it until after I go to the theaters.
I read it, but I won't say what it is.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
I'm not going to say.
No.
I'll say this. Even if you message me on social media, I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah. No, this one definitely has got a lot of eyes on it for the right reasons. But I think the one thing that is the big takeaway before we wrap the segment up, a lot of reviews have been coming in saying about how much heart is in this movie.
Yeah, that's the thing I've heard too.
And I think that this goes back to that point that I was trying to make with establishing the characters and really reconnecting with the audience.
Yeah.
With Marvel switching gears from the Kang Dynasty and really trying to force in a new storyline.
Yeah.
It is a gutsy move at this stage when the brand is already established. So they have been trying to do it, and I think this team is going to be the benchmark to get that going because Fantastic Four is going to be its own standalone.
It's going to be a smash hit no matter what.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
But as far as we get into the road to Doomsday, this is probably going to have the most groundwork to lay on it. But I think it's also going to remind people about the great characters they have.
Yeah.
And especially doing this, going up against the Sentry in the Void and how they explain that, that's going to be something to watch. And then the Fallout, I'm just going to say this. By the time this is all said and done, this is going to be your Avengers team.
Could be.
That's going to be my spoiler prediction. That's why they have the asterisks up. It'll be your quote-unquote Avengers, but it'll be your Dark Avengers for reasons.
Okay.
So that being said, Pat, any final thoughts?
No, excited to see this film, excited to see where it goes, and just kind of, I feel like there's going to be a decent amount of humor with it, just given some of the characters. Obviously, Florence Pugh has great comedic timing on screen. I mean, we go back to the Hawkeye series that came out a couple of years ago. She's great. David Harbour always has great comedic timing. He was great as Red Guardian, in his appearances. And I'm interested to see the John Walker stuff, just because out of all of the characters on this team, I would say he's probably had the most tumultuous resume, I guess you could say, out of the group, just because Bucky had a little bit of a redemption arc. He's generally He's generally well looked upon by the public, I feel, at this point. Been an Avenger, stood side by side with Captain America. John Walker murdered a person, and it was broadcast across the entire planet, on live stream. You know, he's not exactly well liked by, well, anybody. So I'm interested to see where they go with him, just because you want to talk about a guy who's real down and out on his luck right now. It's that dude. And I'm interested to see what they do with him.
I'm interested to see how they play his arc. I mean, in all honesty, I've been very well spoken about how much I don't like the character.
Right.
However, the fact they're trying to give him a redemption arc is kind of interesting to me. And then if they do what they do in the comics, that will be even more interesting. So I would say Wyatt Russell could be the make or break point of this film.
Could be. You never know.
And like I say, however they want to do the Sentry is going to be another thing too. But when you got Bucky, Yelena, and Alexei in the room, you got some good stuff happening.
Yeah.
I will expect Taskmaster to be killed. I think they're going to have one expendable character.
Probably.
I would not doubt that.
Does seem to be the one who's showing up the least in the trailers.
Yeah, so something's hidden for a reason.
The Vegas odds are not looking good.
Right. But overall, this one has definitely got my interest. I think it's going to be a very fun movie.
Yeah.
I'm setting the bar at like the medium level.
Rotten Tomatoes right now with like 144 critic reviews is at like an 89%.
Yeah.
It opened with like a 92, which is the highest it's been in a while for a Marvel film.
Right. So that's why I say, if they're getting back to where it counts and that's really focusing on making these characters relatable and connecting to the audience, I'm all in for it.
Yeah.
I just know they have big shoes to fill. I don't set that bar that high because I don't think they can.
Sure.
But I'm hoping to just go in and just leave that theater going, that was a great film.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to be the wish this weekend at the box office. Thunderbolts debuts from the Marvel Studios franchise. So hit us up. Let us know your predictions going into the movie because we will definitely be recapping it next week. So hit us up. Let us know. We're going to get our last break out. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Scott Snyder, and you better listen to the ODPH podcast or I'm coming for you and Batman is coming for you.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, what you got?
Got a couple things to talk about. First of which is some video game news because we got a trailer for the upcoming Borderlands 4 video game. It was an official gameplay trailer. I think this was the first official gameplay trailer we've gotten. Looked good. It's about a minute 38, about a minute 40. If you've ever played a Borderlands game, looks like Borderlands, just with nicer graphics. I'm excited to get this, especially since the release date got moved up. It was, I think, sometime in October, like late September, early October. It's now coming out on September 12th. So yeah, that's definitely something to look forward to. Coming out on Steam, the Epic Game Store, and then it's also going to be for PS5 and the Xbox Series X/S. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Then we got to talk a little bit of movie news because I talked about the casting that was done for the upcoming Hunger Games film, Sunrise on the Reaping. We did find out 2 casting. Well, about a day or so afterwards, we got 2 more casting new for this upcoming film. They're going to be getting close to filming this. We did find out one of the characters is going to be played by the actress McKenna Grace. She is going to be playing the character Maisie Donner.
Okay.
Now, if you're not familiar with who McKenna Grace is, you might know some of the stuff she's done. She's probably best known for being in the film Gifted. She played the character Mary. She played the 8 to 12-year-old version of Tanya in the I, Tanya film. She was in Phoebe in Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yep.
She was also in 6 episodes as the character Esther Keyes in The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu. So definitely some great casting there. And then probably the one that caught my eye the most is a gentleman joining the cast to play the character Plutarch Havensby. Now, if you read the books, you know that name. If you've only seen the films, the name might ring a bell because that was the character that was portrayed by the late Philip Seymour Hoffman in the Catching Fire and Mockingjay Part 1. He wasn't in Mockingjay Part 2 because unfortunately he had passed by that point. But taking on the role, or a younger version of the role, is the actor. You might have heard the name. He's been in such things as he was in The Irishman. He was in a couple other things. I know he was in Civil War. A couple not too long ago was in 0 Day. That was on Netflix. Was also in Breaking Bad. So I might be giving it away. Jesse Plemons.
Okay.
So, hey, great casting on that part. The cast is starting to round out very nicely. So interested to see where this goes. And I still got to read the book, but I'm excited for this.
Yeah, no, great castings. Before we get into our picks for comic books a day, there's a very big day happening this Saturday.
Yes.
Pat, what is this?
Free Comic Book Day. day.
Right. So we broke this down on Nerd Initiative Turn a Page last night. And this is a monster day to go to the comic shops. And I'm going to stand on my soapbox and scream about it. This is the one day out of the year that if you have ever decided that you want to, A, get somebody involved in comics, B, set up a poll list, or C, just want to see what the fandom is all really about. Go track down your comic shop wherever you're at. Comicshoplocator.com is always a great place.
Let's say there's one also on freecomicbookday.com.
Yes. Go check out the deals that are happening. Everybody's doing something for it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a great way to get into your fandoms and really celebrate. I know we have a couple shops in our area that are going to be that have big things planned out.
Get there early if you're in the 607.
Yeah, if you're in the
Speaking from experience.
Yes.
Got there what I thought would be a decent time to get in line and not have to wait super long. Boy, was I wrong.
Right. So this is going to be one that you really want to go out and just tell friends about too. This is a perfect way to go. Like I think this is one of the most important days of the year in the comic industry.
Agreed.
And I think this is one just going and hanging out with fellow fans and just and you converse and you'd be surprised about who becomes fans after leaving there.
And you might run into some people you didn't think were comic book fans.
Yeah. I mean, I've had some great experiences going to both our shops in town on that day and just celebrating the fandoms and just even with the free comics, going and checking out a publisher I didn't know about.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'll always recommend. If you're never sure about something, go grab one of the free books and get involved in it. I mean, check to see about the limits at the shops you go to.
Right. And plus the thing too is the great thing with these comics is almost always they are early previews of what's coming out either later in the year, in a couple weeks, early next year, and it might turn you on to something that you might have overlooked or not given the time of day just because you might have not have thought it's your cup of tea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a great way to celebrate comics and really go out and support the shops too.
Yeah,
like that's the best thing you can do. Everybody's probably got something different wherever they're at. So that being said, we can't recommend going to freecomicbookday.com enough. We'll even throw the link in the liner notes for today's episode. So that being said, Pad, if anybody's heading down there, what should they be looking for this week?
They should be looking up for some of the things I reviewed on Nerd Initiative this week. All of them fantastic issues. First of which is going to be from the folks over at Marvel, and you have Star Wars: The High Republic, Fear of the Jedi, issue number 3 of 5. This one from Kevin Scott. You got America Cresta as the artist, and this one reads, Blockade over Iriadu. Lines are drawn as Keeve Trennis's Stormwall defense fleet joins the fight against the Nihil. Can Keeve remain true to the light as she leads her team into battle? Meanwhile, Heartbreak is relieved as the past catches up with one of Lorna D's crew. So this one, a lot of fun, a lot of familiar faces you might know if you've been keeping up with the stuff in the High Republic, and it's a great read. Kevin Scott, you cannot go wrong. Mm-hmm. Then from the folks over at Dark Horse, you've got Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, The Battle of Iriadu. Now, this is a one-shot from Alyssa Wong, and this one reads, 2 estranged friends find themselves on opposing sides of the Battle of Iriadu. Jedi Padawan Gavi fights for light and life, while Dridget Parse sits at the right hand of the villainous Warden. When the two finally meet again after Driggett's betrayal, it's on the front lines. Can their old friendship be salvaged amidst a war? Award-winning writer Alyssa Wong, the author of Dr. Aphra, The High Republic, Escape from Valo, and other fan-favorite Star Wars titles, returns to the High Republic Adventure series. Alyssa Wong, great artist, great writer. This one, story you might be familiar with, at least the kind of meat and potatoes or the framework of it, but it's in a Star Wars way. It's a fun read. Cannot go wrong with that one. And then also from Dark Horse, you have Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, issue number 17 from Daniel Jose Older. This one is as Battle of Iriadu continues. The leader of the Resistance, Jedi Knight Farzala Terrible, is faced with an impossible decision. Risk the lives of his friends or forfeit their chances of defeating the Nihil. It's a dilemma that sees Farzala descend to a dark place only to discover a surprising confidant. So this one, if you've been keeping up with High Republic Adventures, certainly that surprising confidant going to surprise the hell out of you. Definitely recommend this one. It's a fun read. And lastly, from Dark Horse, you've got Star Wars Hyperspace Stories, issue number 1 from Ethan Sachs. This one reads, Poe Dameron, ace Resistance pilot, and his droid companion, BB-8, are sent to investigate a piece of First Order tech used to decode Resistance messages. Standing between them and their objective is an infamous TIE fighter pilot. Can Poe outfly his enemy, or will the mission go down in flames before it begins? Close quote. Now, this one, It takes place before The Force Awakens. Well,
Okay.
how do I know that? Well, they mentioned the Republic in it. Also, it can't be in between Force Awakens and Last Jedi because those two happen simultaneously. And, well, Leia's around, so it's clearly not after Rise of Skywalker. So this one takes place before Force Awakens. And I got to say, it's a good setup. It's a good start. I'm excited to see where this goes. You got Poe Dameron and BB-8, which can't go wrong with that pairing. So I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, I mean, the Star Wars stuff at Dark Horse has been on point,
Yeah.
too. And the Marvel stuff, too. as
Yeah.
well.
And then lastly, certainly not leastly, probably the most insane issue I read this week from the folks over at Marvel and Jonathan Hickman, Ultimate Spider-Man issue number 16. If I can't convince you why you should read this issue on the first sentence alone, I don't know if I can help you. Quote, the secret origin of Mysterio. Even Kingpin knows little about the criminal in the smoky helmet, but Spider-Man's about to learn more than he bargained for, close quote. This issue is nuts. And I mean that with like all caps, bold and italicized. Nuts. You do learn who Mysterio is. I did not see it coming. There's two twists in this story. One, I think most fans saw coming based off of what happened in issue, I want to say it was 15. The other twist, though, didn't see that coming. Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's wild. It's ambitious. I can't remember a run for anything I've read that's this consistent with like home run after home run, but Hickman is just knocking it out of the park with this run.
This might be Marvel's best book.
Yeah, it's in that conversation.
It's in the conversation with Ultimates.
Yeah.
It really is. So you got to keep that in perspective. But, I mean, great picks, Pat. Mine, I say it every week. It's a laundry list. But you know what? I don't mind. I don't mind at all when this high quality like this. Kicking off things, Comixology Originals.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Ulysses Monarch. So this is Mark Guggenheim and Harvey Talabo.
So, yeah, I know Guggenheim.
Yep. So this is a very cool story, kind of mixing Star Wars and Indiana Jones a little bit.
Oh, all right.
This is something definitely worthwhile checking out. It's a future story set in 3026.
Okay.
And it's about an adventurer who's stealing some artifacts that belong in the past, and you kind of see how their adventures fold out.
I just heard Harrison Ford in my head.
Yeah, like
It belongs in a museum.
it's a very cool book, though. I will say this on Comixology, so everybody should go check it out digitally. Really go dig it. I mean, I think it's a very fun Hollywood style book, which I just dig. DC Comics, Batman Superman World's Finest Annual. So we're in the annual phase now for the big two, and this one, this is We Are Yesterday Part 3. This is a lot going on. This is Mark Waid, Christopher Cantwell, and Dan McDade on the art for this. There's a backup story by Morgan Hampton and Clayton Henry featuring Jon Stewart. But this one, the main story is about how Grodd creates the Legion of Doom.
Oh, Lord.
Pretty much. And like, if you haven't been reading JLU, Justice League Unlimited, there's been a mysterious group called Inferno that has really been handling the expanded roster of the Justice League.
Okay.
We find out that Gorilla Grodd is behind this all. And we find out the people that he's working with are the old school Legion of Doom.
Oh, all right.
This issue explains how we get from point A to point B. And it's going back and forth a lot. It's a great issue. If you really love like that very classic superhero matchups, World's Finest does it better than everybody. And I mean, granted, it's Mark Waid, but this, like I said, he does have an assist with Christopher Cantwell on the art, on the writing for this. And this one, like I say, it goes a lot of different directions. It's fun though, so it's one very worth the time. Especially been reading the crossover and explains a lot. So you finally get some payoffs you've been waiting on. Also, Image Comics, Skybound Entertainment. You're going to hear that another time in this segment. G.I. Joe, Real American Hero, Duke #1. This is the last of the Silent Missions run. So this is Wes Craig and Jason Wordie, and this is Duke tracking down a traitor. We say no dialogue, just straight up storytelling. And this one, I mean, if you love that old school G.I. Joe vibe, this is it. And I do. I'm a big fan of what they've done here from Skybound, so definitely can't recommend that enough. Going back to DC Comics, we're at the end of the road for Renee Montoya. The Question all along the Watchtower #6. So this has been Alex Segura, Cian Tormey, And this has been the story of Renee Montoya's new job as the sheriff, so to speak, of the jail watchtower.
Okay.
Somebody has been coming in. There was an attempted murder of one of the challengers of the unknown. It comes to find out, Pat, that the villain behind all of this is one Hank Henshaw.
Oh.
Cyborg Superman.
Yeah.
So Henshaw's on the way to victory. Renee Montoya has to pull out a Hail Mary to stop him.
As one does.
And this, like I say, it really establishes the question's place in the Justice League and the DCU too. So very fun. This has been a great series thus far, and I think it has a very solid ending to it. So definitely one worth checking out. Image Comics, Black Market Narrative, Massive Verse, Radiant Black 33. So this is Kyle Higgins, Joe Clark, Eduardo Fergato, and Marcelo Costa on the art here. And they do some very cool things. I mean, this is kind of picking up Marshall's place in time now as the one true Radiant Black. Has a little crossover with Rogue Sun's Rogue Blood Moon. So, and really dealing with the impact of what happened in the Catalyst War. So very solid. It's a great bookend to Rogue Sun 26. So if you read that, you kind of have a deeper understanding of what's going on and setting up some things in the future. So I'm excited about that. Image Comics, we're taking everybody down with us. Number 2. This has been a wild story. I'm so happy this came across my path, and I'm so happy I got the chance to talk to Matthew Rosenberg about this. It's him and Stefano Landini, and this story is half James Bond, half science fiction. It is all just crazy, and I love this. Pad, you would actually really dig this.
All right.
Because it's a story about a 13-year-old girl named Annalise, and her father is basically like an evil scientist, so to speak, that deals with the spy industry.
Okay.
And he has been off the grid for quite some time, is attacked. Basically, he's killed.
Oh.
And now it's up to Annalise and her robot guardian now to kind of figure out what's going on. And there's a secret agent that's now trying to kill them both. There's a lot of moving parts with this, but this is spy-fi. It's a whole new genre. This is just dope as hell. I got to recommend that. Also, very quickly from Image Comics, You'll Do Bad Things number 2 and Lost Fantasy number 1. Did not get a chance to review those personally, but read them. Both excellent books.
Nice.
Boom Studios, Something's Killing the Children number 41. James Tynan, Werther del Edera. And this is now picking up. It's been some time since we've had to see Erica Slaughter. This is picking up on a past story with her and Jessica. And it's one that she still has, like, they've been doing these flashbacks of her past ever since her run-in with Cutter. So this is a brand new story arc. They do slow burn drama better than everybody. So get ready. Something's Killing the Children's back. Enough said. Enough said. Also, the coolest book at the LCS every time it drops is back finally. Grimm 22, Stephanie Phillips, Flaviano, Rico Renzi, Tom Napolitano. This... Every time I say, like, this book can't top itself, it finds a way to do it.
Oh, yeah?
So this is dealing with Jessica trying to take out Annabelle, who has been possessed with original sin, and the drama that comes with it. Then now she has to work with her aunt Adira, who has been trying to kill her the entire time. Like, it's a very complicated story. Grimm is just DIY, punk rock and roll, mythology, all, like, there's so many elements going on here, but the damn last page got me. I literally was like almost going to message Stephanie Phillips and be like, why, and I don't want to spoil it, but like, there's just moments. I still might actually post this just that why question, and unfortunately I know Stephanie will shoot me a line back about this. So but Grimm is just the coolest book ever. Like, I love the series, so definitely go check that out. And then last but certainly never least, Void Rivals number 18, Robert Kirkman, Lorenzo Di Felici. And there's been a big revelation that's been going on in Void Rivals. I know we haven't really talked about it here too much, but with the Energon universe kicking into high gear, and they have a great free comic book day issue that you need to go check out. This kind of plays into what they've been building for now almost 2 years, and it's freaking wild. So this is a lot of fallout and setup, and the story of Darek and Solila is really taking a really drastic turn. So I think this has been great, and I can't wait to see where they're going with it. And if you want more reviews, nerdinitiative.com has you, I believe, 42 this week. Ooh. Something like that between the website and YouTube. So definitely make sure you're subbed up. We got the links on the page. Definitely go check it out, and let us know what you're reading. Especially let us know what you picked up at Free Comic Book Day. We definitely want to have that conversation. Whew, that's been a big episode this week. So for the one and only Padawan Jay,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken. Thank you as always. Listen to the ODPH podcast. See you next time.